Surveillance cameras run quietly in the background, capturing life as it unfolds, never warning, never hesitating. Hidden among hours of ordinary footage are moments that shift without mercy, turning routine recordings into scenes of sudden, chilling tragedy. These aren't scripted, staged, or exaggerated. They're real people, real situations, and final moments no one expected to witness. In this video, we break down 5 true cases of disturbing deaths caught on webcam, moments frozen forever in footage that still unsettles viewers to this day. It was the morning of August 6, 2024, in São Paulo, Brazil. A normal Tuesday. A day that should have passed quietly, the same way countless others had for 45-year-old Adriana Maria de Jesus. She woke up, got ready, and headed out to work at the Sto André building, an aging apartment complex she knew well. This routine was second nature to her, something she had done so many times that it barely required thought. Her husband, Gildo Alves dos Santos, was already downstairs at his station. He worked as the building's concierge, keeping an eye on the entrance and the hallways through a bank of security monitors. For him, it was just another shift, another quiet morning where nothing ever really happened, until this one did. Adriana stepped into the elevator on the 5th floor. She looked calm, focused, completely unaware that the next few minutes would change everything. The elevator stopped again on the 7th floor, where 2 men, one in his 20s, the other in his 60s, joined her. They exchanged the quiet nods strangers give each other, then Adriana pressed the button to go down. From his desk, Gildo watched the little square on his screen showing the elevator's interior. He had done this 1,000 times. But this time, something felt off. The elevator moved upward first, 2 floors before beginning its descent. A slight glitch, nothing alarming. But then, in an instant that seemed to split time in half, the elevator dropped. No warning, no mechanical groan, no chance for anyone inside to brace themselves. On the monitor, Gildo watched his wife's arm shoot upward as the floor beneath her vanished. The 2 men lurched violently, grabbing the handrails, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Then came the plummeting fast, brutal, unstoppable. The camera shook, the screen exploding into smoke and dust as the elevator slammed into the bottom of the shaft. Gildo could only stare. The love of his life, the woman he had known since childhood, was suddenly fighting for her life inside that cloud of debris. Rescue teams rushed in. They pulled Adriana out first. She was alive, but barely. Her injuries were catastrophic. The 2 men were hurt as well, but survived. Adriana, however, would spend a week in the hospital, fighting for a life she had built with so much hope. 7 days later, on August 13th, she was gone, and with her went the future she and Gildo had finally reclaimed. They were childhood sweethearts, separated for nearly 3 decades, only to find each other again 6 years earlier. When they reunited, it felt like fate giving them a second chance. They married soon after. They planned the rest of their lives together. But on that morning, Gildo had watched her final moments through a screen. In an interview afterwards, he said, "I watched the monitor and everything looked normal. Then it came down, and I was horrified. My heart is broken." As investigators dug deeper, a grim truth emerged. The Sto André building was over 60 years old, and the elevator had allegedly never been replaced. No modern safety systems, no updated brakes, no meaningful upgrades. Atlas Schindler, the company responsible for maintenance, had reportedly warned the building's owners to modernize the lift, a warning that appears to have gone ignored. 2 months later, when the CCTV footage was made public, it stunned people across the country. The calm steps into the elevator, the quiet descent, and then that sudden violent drop ending in a burst of dust that signaled the end of 3 innocent lives as they knew them. The investigation is still ongoing. Authorities continue reviewing evidence, speaking to witnesses, and working with engineers to determine how such a catastrophic failure happened. But one thing is painfully clear. A piece of outdated machinery, neglected for decades, may have stolen a woman's future and forced her husband to watch her die from just a few feet away.
In hours of the brutal murder of his math teacher, prosecutors say Philip Chisholm went to a movie, using his slain victim's credit card to buy the ticket.
It was October 22nd, 2013, in Danvers, Massachusetts. For 24-year-old Colleen Ritzer, it was just another day doing what she loved. She stayed after class to help her students, something she did often because teaching wasn't a job to her. It was part of her identity. One of those students was a quiet 14-year-old freshman named Philip Chisholm. Colleen was the kind of teacher students adored, kind, patient, and full of energy. Her Twitter bio said it perfectly. Math teacher often too excited about the topics I'm teaching. She lived for moments where her students finally understood something difficult. But that day, everything shifted. Just before 3 p.m., she stepped out to use the restroom. A minute later, surveillance footage captured Chisholm following her inside, hood up, calm, silent. At 3:06 p.m., a female student stepped in, saw a motionless lower body, and quickly left, assuming someone was changing. She had no idea she had walked in on something horrifying. Moments later, Chisholm emerged, carrying Colleen's pants. The footage only grew more disturbing. He returned with a recycling bin, then wheeled it out of the school wearing a black ski mask, dragging it toward the woods. Silent, methodical, real. By evening, panic set in. Colleen never came home. Chisholm vanished too. Police found him past midnight on Route 1, carrying a blood-stained box cutter and Colleen's belongings. When questioned, he answered with one chilling phrase, "The girl?" Hours later, her body was found in the woods, covered in leaves. Nearby was a note scrawled in teenage handwriting, "I hate you all." During trial, prosecutors revealed that Colleen had simply asked Chisholm about his move from Tennessee, a harmless question that seemed to trigger something dark. Minutes later, he followed her into the bathroom, strangled her, harmed her, and dragged her body outside in the recycling bin. Afterward, he calmly watched a movie and shoplifted a knife. The evidence, the footage, forensic findings, and his own words left the courtroom stunned. He was convicted and sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 40 years. Even then, the horror continued. While awaiting trial, he attacked a female youth services worker, adding 17 to 20 more years to his sentence. Today, he remains in prison. But for Colleen's family, the pain never fades. They honor her through a scholarship in her name. Friends wear pink, her favorite color, to keep her memory alive. They remember her smile, her warmth, and the passion she brought into every classroom.
The devastating end to a scenic ride that never reached its destination. A cable car with 15 tourists on board crashing 20 meters to the rugged terrain below.
It was May 23rd, 2021, in northern Italy. A small red and white cable car began its usual 20-minute climb from the town of Stresa up the steep slopes of Mount Motorone. Inside were 15 people, parents holding their kids, couples taking photos, travelers soaking in the calm, blue sky over Lake Maggiore. It was supposed to be an easy, scenic ride to the 4,900-foot summit, a place people visited to feel alive, not to die. But just minutes before reaching the top, everything changed. Around midday, witnesses heard a sharp, unnatural hissing sound echo across the mountain. The cable car, still hundreds of feet above the ground, suddenly jerked. Then it began sliding backward. Fast, too fast. The main cable pulling it upward had snapped. Normally, this should have triggered a safety miracle. The emergency brake clamping down, locking the cabin in place. But on this day, for reasons no one understood, the brake didn't engage. It stayed open, frozen, useless. The helpless cabin accelerated down the line, gaining deadly speed. It slammed into a pylon with such force that the entire car broke free from the cable. Then it dropped roughly 65 feet before slamming into the earth. But the nightmare didn't end on impact. The car rolled nearly 500 yards down the steep mountainside, bouncing, flipping, snapping trees in its path until it was finally stopped by 2 pine trunks strong enough to catch it. The crash site was pure devastation. Bodies thrown from the wreck, others trapped inside the twisted metal. It was silent except for the wind and the distant echo of people realizing something terrible had happened. Among the passengers was a family visiting from Israel. 5-year-old Eitan Biran had come with his father, Amit, his mother Tal, his little brother Tom, and his great-grandparents Yitzhak and Barbara. All of them were killed instantly except Eitan. Rescuers found him unconscious, broken, and barely breathing. He had suffered head trauma, chest injuries, and fractures in both legs. But doctors later discovered why he survived. In the final seconds, his father had wrapped his body around his son, shielding him. His last act, his final instinct. Another child, 5-year-old Mattia Zorloni, survived the initial fall too. He had come with his parents, who were planning to get married the following month. Mattia fought for hours in the hospital, but didn't make it through the night. His entire future gone in a single moment. The victims included young couples, parents, tourists, and locals. 27-year-old Silvia Malnati and her fiancé, Alejandro Merlo, were planning their wedding. Dr. Roberta Pistolato, who spent the pandemic treating patients, was celebrating her 40th birthday. She texted her sister minutes before boarding. It would be the last message she ever sent. Also lost were researcher Serena Cosentino and her boyfriend, university student Mohammad Reza Shahisandi. 14 people gone in minutes. Only Eitan survived. Investigators immediately faced a disturbing question. How did a modern cable system fail so catastrophically? They learned the traction cable had snapped near the top, but that alone shouldn't have killed anyone. The emergency brake should have locked the cabin instantly onto the support cable. But it didn't. It did nothing. That failure allowed the car to race backward until it broke loose entirely. CCTV footage captured the cabin's final seconds before it vanished from view. To make matters more unsettling, the cable line had only reopened a month earlier after COVID closures. It had been renovated in 2016. Inspections were done as recently as December 2020. By all official accounts, it should have been safe. Yet, somehow, in broad daylight, with families and children on board, every critical system failed at once. Italy, a country still haunted by tragedies like the Genoa Bridge collapse, now had to confront another catastrophe. One that raised urgent questions about oversight, responsibility, and the true cost of human error. Rescue teams described the scene as one of the worst they had ever witnessed. Some victims lay inside the crushed cabin. Others were scattered in the forest. One fire truck even overturned while trying to reach the wreckage on the steep slope. The site of the cabin, mangled, torn open, surrounded by broken branches, looked like something ripped from a nightmare. At the hospital, Etienne's remaining family rushed to his bedside. Doctors said the next 48 hours would decide everything. His aunt later revealed the cruel irony. The family had come to Italy seeking peace from tensions at home. "We thought, what could happen in Italy?" she said. A question no one there can ever ask again without remembering the answer. It was August 12, 2025, in Lancaster, California. So when 33-year-old mother of 3, Shayla Cabrera, suddenly vanished without a word, everyone felt that gut-level fear that something was terribly, terribly wrong. Shayla wasn't the type to disappear. She loved her children fiercely. She kept routines. She always told someone where she was going. But on that morning, her apartment was silent. Her phone was off, and her 3 little boys were nowhere to be seen. When deputies arrived, they immediately sensed the same thing. The neighbors felt this wasn't a missing person case. This was something darker. And then came the footage. A Ring security camera captured her husband, 36-year-old Josemar Cabrera, dragging a large, heavy object wrapped tightly in fabric out of the apartment. 2 days before anyone even realized Shayla was missing. The bundle was long, heavy, awkward, and he struggled with it alone, silent, just before dawn. Investigators studied the footage frame by frame. One moment showed Shayla walking into the apartment with the Josemar. The next moment showed him dragging something out. Shayla never appeared again. Detectives feared what everyone watching the footage dreaded. Something violent had happened in that home. Search teams from across Los Angeles County mountain units, K-9 squads, rescue crews were sent out into the vast Angeles National Forest, a wilderness so huge and unforgiving that even experienced hikers get lost. And on the morning of August 16th, around 10 a.m., the search finally ended. Down a steep embankment, wrapped in green fabric, just like in the video, they found her. Shayla and Josemar had moved from Peru in 2023, hoping for a better future. But behind closed doors, according to her mother, things had become unbearable. Shayla confided that Josimar mistreated her, that he even harmed their 3-year-old son. She told her parents she was planning to take her boys and go back to Peru days before she disappeared. Neighbors confirmed the same thing. She had talked about filing a report, about divorce, about finally escaping. On August 10th, a neighbor heard screams coming from the apartment. Hours later, the Ring camera captured Josimar dragging that wrapped object away. By the time investigators began connecting the dots, he was already gone. He had boarded a flight to Peru with all the 3 children. He was briefly detained, then released because no warrant had been issued yet. And then he vanished again, but his stories didn't match. He told one person immigration officials had taken Shayla, even though her appointment wasn't until September. He told another she left him for someone else. Then he claimed she was in some kind of accident but gave no details. Every lie made the truth clearer. A friend working closely with investigators discovered blood near the condo. Combined with the video, the screams, and the recovery in the forest, detectives finally had enough. Meanwhile, in Peru, the children were found, placed under protection, and reunited with their grandmother, the only stability they had left. Back in California, prosecutors filed charges. Murder, with an enhancement for using a knife. If he is brought back and convicted, he faces 26 years to life. The district attorney called the case horrific, vowing to bring Shayla justice. And yet, the final chapter depends on one thing: whether Peru agrees to send Josimar back to the United States. It was the early hours of August 4th, 2019 in Cusco, Peru. Maybeth Espinoz, 34, and her partner Hector Vidal, 36, had recently moved to Cusco. Both were skilled mountaineers and tour guides, known for their professionalism and love for the outdoors. That night, they went out together, enjoying a rare moment away from work and routine. Surveillance cameras later captured them leaving a nightclub near the Bethlehem Bridge just after 1 a.m., walking arm in arm, laughter and whispers lost to the cool night air. To anyone watching, it looked like an ordinary evening, but minutes later, everything changed. The Bethlehem Bridge rose about 50 feet above the road, flanked by metal railings meant to prevent accidents. May and Hector stopped at the center, leaning on the railing, lost in their private world. They kissed, held each other close, the kind of intimate moment that feels suspended in time. Maybeth climbed onto the railing, sitting atop it, wrapping her legs around Hector's waist. Playful, affectionate, tender, the security cameras captured it all. Then, in a heartbeat, the moment turned deadly. Maybeth lost her balance. Her legs, locked around Hector, pulled him forward. Both reached frantically for the railing, but gravity was relentless. Clinging to each other, they toppled over the edge, plummeting nearly 50 feet to the road below. Passers-by screamed. Emergency crews arrived within minutes. Maybeth had died instantly. Her life ended in a single, unimaginable moment. Hector survived the fall but was critically injured. His skull fractured, his body battered. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital, but nothing could save him. He passed away shortly after arrival. Authorities studied the surveillance footage, confirming what witnesses had already feared. It was not a crime, not foul play, only a tragic accident born of a single misstep, a fleeting moment of carelessness amidst closeness. No substances were involved, nothing but the cruel pull of gravity and a split-second loss of balance. The city mourned. News of the accident spread quickly, not just through Peru but internationally. Friends and colleagues remembered Maybeth and Hector as kind, passionate, and deeply in love, two people who had built a life together in the mountains they adored, whose bond had seemed unbreakable. Both had family in northern Peru, and their bodies were later returned home. Cusco had seen accidents before, but nothing like this. Neither was a tourist. They were part of the city's lifeblood, members of the tourism community, and yet, in the heart of town, on a bridge that had always seemed safe, a single, miscalculated movement had ended their lives. In the days that followed, tributes poured in. Fellow mountaineers spoke of their teamwork, their shared passion for adventure, and the love that had defined their every step. But no tribute could reverse that one devastating fall.